Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. We come to you live every day at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 Pacific for about an hour or 90 minutes each day. We do 3 different gun-related topics each day, different topics throughout the week. We run it live over on the YouTubes. We simulcast it at gunchannels.com, where we're watching the live comments that are coming in from everybody that watches us live. Also over on YouTube. When it's all over, we'll take the audio and we'll turn that into a podcast over on iTunes. So we appreciate everybody who's listening to the show now or in the future to give us some feedback on the show, on the social media platforms you're listening to it on. We've got a bunch of hosts. 4 of us are here today. We got Dano jumping in from Illinois. Thanks for joining.
Yep, glad to be here.
We got Smeggy jumping in from Michigan. Thanks for being here.
Yep. Yeah. How's everyone going today? Or how's everyone doing today, or how's it going? I guess just mix those two up. That's fine.
Been doing well. And then I got Z jumping in from Hawaii.
What up?
I'm down here in Arizona. Bob is also in Arizona. Andy's been texted that the show's live, but we'll see if he decides to jump in or not. Let's see. We're starting episode 262. We'll be talking about ambiguous gun laws today. We'll be debating bolt gun versus lever gun, and then talking about New York a little bit, as well as all the other things we talk about on a daily basis. Before we dig into it, though, we usually like to take a break, see if anything happened overnight, or, well, I guess not over the weekend, just overnight.
Well, I'll go ahead and start off. I'm sure some of you may have heard some of the reports on what I guess what's being referred to as Vault 7 from WikiLeaks. And the CIA lost control of the majority of its hacking arsenal, including malware, viruses, trojans, weaponized zero-day exploits, malware remote control systems, and associated CIA malware targets, iPhones, Androids, and smart TVs. So thanks, CIA, for creating your own little brand new internal agency so you didn't have to reach out and be under the review of others. Great job.
They're a clandestine operation that doesn't always ask for permissions to get the jobs done that they do.
Yeah, but when it comes to the tools they use, they're supposed to go out, they're supposed to use only certain tools. The NSA is supposed to be the agency for those sorts of tools, not the CIA. You don't go to the Army if you need big ships.
I will disagree on a level or two of that, but okay.
All right, you go to the Navy.
Well, the CIA is for outside the country, right? FBI?
Correct. Yes.
Right. So if they're saying they've been pointing it inside the country, that's a concern. And then to the extent.
I believe it was just the tools that they use outside of the country is what they had lost control of. And
well,
it's just the fact that those tools exist.
And these can be used now by anybody. All of our enemies.
By anybody?
To them.
Really? By anybody, though? Really? By anybody?
Excuse me?
They can be used by anybody, you said?
Yes.
So does that mean you can use them, Dano?
Some of them I probably could. Some of them I could not.
Do you believe that you have access to these?
If I wanted to go to the dark net, I probably could, yes.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, dude. Come on.
Well, don't Yankee him. He's saying could be. He should have qualified it.
He said anybody, dude.
He said anybody who he said could be used by anybody, not will be used by everyone.
And by anybody, I'm referring to large organizations like ISIS and states that are our enemies, and other organizations like cartels in Mexico and South America that are our enemy. That's what I'm referring to by them.
I don't know if cartels are into computers. I imagine they are, though.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
You know,
multi-billion-dollar industry. They're not going to use pen and paper for that.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I'm saying to go out and screw around on the internet. Imagine they, I don't know how much they branch out. They are some of the biggest entities out there. Anyhow, so I haven't heard much about this. Has this been going around the news a lot?
This was just came out in the news either today or last night, or yesterday, I should say. I was just aware of it early this morning, but the 0-day exploit is one of those things. It's like as an example, and I realize a lot of you people, you're all on computers, you may already be familiar with it, but for those that may be a little fuzzy on what a 0-day exploit is let's say I'm a government agency and I find that there's a major problem with Microsoft Word, and I can get access to all your documents by doing a certain procedure. Okay, what you're supposed to do is notify the company Microsoft so that they can then quickly put a patch in place that then will safeguard that entrance to all of your information. 0-day means you can go in because they have no days. The company itself has no days of preparing for an infestation of outside sources. And you are completely and totally vulnerable if you have those sorts of software systems.
All right, well, that's news-ish, but I don't know if it's really gun-related. Anything else happen overnight? Match chat?
Worst movies.
Bob's here, so I imagine let's just jump into the show then. So we've
Yep.
got,
Hey, Bob.
so should we do the Second Amendment first or the gun advocacy one? We could hang off on that one and send the links to the Andalusia Armory guys.
Hey guys.
Sounds good.
Hey, Bob.
So we'll do ambiguous gun laws. That's what we're doing for our Second Amendment segment this week. Where do we want to take this one? Are any of them not ambiguous? Let's start with that, maybe.
Well, yeah. Well, usually the one thing that's common from one to another is the wording is ambiguous. One part or another always tends to be like, well, what exactly do they mean by that?
Well, sometimes it'll be less ambiguous or non-ambiguous when they specifically start mentioning make, model, or types of firearms, so to speak, in some of their anti-gun laws, kind of like California with their lists and stuff like that. I know that there's other states out there that they have prohibited firearms list. So they're slightly less than ambiguous because they're actually specific. I know, for an example, the state of Hawaii on their gun laws list the term assault pistol, but then they further go on to define or describe what that is to leave it not as ambiguous. And I mean, I will agree that any gun law written after the Constitution is an infringement, but I will not say that any gun law written after the Constitution is ambiguous. That was somebody out in the chat had just said anything after that. So
Yeah, it's true. It's the way ambiguous is the way they write them, not necessarily.
We can barely hear you, Bob.
I say ambiguous is you know a term that's got nothing to do with whether they're good or bad or anything like that. It's how they word them. I mean, you can do a gun law that's not ambiguous in that it's very clear and concise in what it's banning or what it's not banning. So yeah, as far as that definition goes.
I mean, one of the most common things is, example, what's an assault weapon?
well, if you see some of those gun laws, they actually go on further to define them.
Well, it depends on the law. I mean, if we go through the history of laws that have gone after whatever assault weapons means, that has evolved over time. I mean, they literally started off with, assault weapons as if that was already a predefined category.
They defined when they did the assault weapons ban in '94. They did define what they considered an assault weapon to be.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it was complete and accurate? Is there even
since I believe that perfection is not a destination but a journey, I'll agree with you on that, Dano. Was it perfect? No. Clearly, they made the mistake of giving it a sunset.
Yeah, I mean, it's the other is and then how does a semi-automatic, traditional hunting rifle not an assault rifle?
Oh, I mean, they are clearly defined. That's not ambiguous. They specifically say, if it has a detachable magazine and these features. Now, are they dumb? Are they arbitrary? Yes. Are they
Yes.
ambiguous?
There
No.
there are quite a few though hunting rifles that have detachable magazines and are semi-automatic. I mean, you got the Remington 740, 742, 7,
Well,
But then
sure,
they add the stupid stuff
have
about bayonet
barrel
lugs,
shrouds and
muzzle
bayonet lugs.
devices. Yep, barrel shrouds as well.
right. But I mean, it's anytime they start off a definition with, oh, it's got a detachable magazine and it's semi-automatic, I mean, that just makes the whole thing ridiculous because they've been using that's technology that's been around since the 1900s.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's arguing that it's not ridiculous. I'm just standing up for the fact that it's not ambiguous. If
Well,
they
the
just said assault weapons, you all know what that means, then that would be ambiguous. And there are some where they do that. And the reason being is because they want to be able to put as many things as possible in there. I mean, just look at when people made featureless rifles, they took the letter of the law and said, if it has this and this and this, then it's an assault weapon. So if I take those off, it's not, pin the adjustable stock so it doesn't move, weld the barrel nut or not the barrel nut, the like the muzzle brake, weld that in place so it's
pin
not
and welded.
removable.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mill,
things like that.
off.
And then they go, oh, that's a loophole, so we need to do more stuff. Listen, dude, we followed exactly what you said. Like you specifically said what was not allowed. The gun that's made does not have any of those things, and it's fine. And now you're trying to make something even more broad that then excludes even more things. So then people will find their way following the law the way they have it written, and they'll get mad about that and try and do more.
Right, and people will argue that that is why they consider it ambiguous, right? Is because you can follow the letter of what the law that they've written, and they think they've written it very concisely and very precisely that these are what makes an assault weapon. So you take those off, and you still end up with the same gun that does the same thing, except you can't stick a bayonet on it and you can't adjust the stock. It's they still want to outlaw them. So,
Well, yeah, but again, it's because they wrote it so detailed. I'll give you an example of an ambiguous one is the ammo armor piercing ammo thing. That's one of those ones where they just reinterpret what it means and like, well, I mean it says that, but it could be other stuff or whatever, or like sporting use. That's probably even a better example. I take back my first example, sporting use. That's an ambiguous law. It's like, everything for sporting use is allowed, but not the other stuff. And it's
I
like,
think
what the heck does that mean?
it's also an ambiguous term because it's being used in a way that's not clearly defined.
Well, exactly. And that one, I think they did do that on purpose so that when it's like, well, what about this gun? They can go, nah, it's not a sporting use. Well, what if I use it like this? Okay, that one's allowed, but not that other one. What about this one? Oh no, can't have that one. It's not sporting. What about this one? Might be sporting. I mean, they like
Because
to be able to do that, pick and choose.
the simple concept of where there's two or more people involved in a competition where there's clearly someone who wins in a physical contest that requires some sort of physical movement, that might be a very simplistic definition of sport.
That's why we're trying to get the sporting use changed
but-
to the lawful use, right?
Well,
So
right.
it's less
But it
ambiguous.
goes back to the ambiguous is they're using it in a way that doesn't make any sense.
Well,
and
Because otherwise, 3-gun and the tools used in 3-gun would not be of issue.
but yet you can use a standard AR-15, that evil black rifle in 223 or 308. If you're shooting bigger game, you can use those for hunting. They are used for hunting all over. There was a whole show of Alaskan, people living in Alaska, and one of the guys used an AR-15 daily while out in Alaska, out and about hunting game and stuff. So obviously they are and can be used as a sporting rifle, as a hunting rifle. So I mean, that makes the whole thing where they're banning them because, 90% of the time they're banning something because of the way it looks. It's got nothing to do with how it functions. It's oh, that's scary. We have to ban it.
Well, and I also think they're using the word sporting not in the sense of competition or like, baseball, football, like, sports ball. They're using sporting as in
Hunting.
Well, and not even necessarily hunting, but like,
Hunting.
gentlemanly, like it's sporting, like it's
hunting, shooting clays, this kind of thing, right? So, and those are traditionally done with wood-stocked rifles. So that's why they think, oh, if we put sporting use, that only means, rifles with wood stocks kind of thing.
Well, we also have the alpine cross-country skiing and shooting. I forget what the event is called.
Biathlon.
No, biathlon? No.
Yes, biathlon.
Yeah. And those are, pretty.
Those are some of the most awesome, accurate 22s you'll ever get your paws on.
Oh yeah, and light.
But it seems like any cultural activity, which is where a lot of these sports come from, is various cultural areas, and whether it's European or whether it's American or whether it's from some other place, is that they all seem to stop at the end of the 1800s. Anything that's happened since then doesn't seem to be included in regards to sporting. Is if no more sports were invented after 1890 or whatever it was.
Well, then any rifle that's used for long range shooting. So any of the those 50 caliber sniper rifles that can shoot down jet planes,
like the Camp Perry exercises,
because that was a big sporting event back in the day.
We have a lot of long distance competitions down in the U.S. at some of the military bases. Some of them allow civilians to come in and compete. Some of them are military only. It does vary, but they are competitions.
One of the other ones that I had mentioned before we even started was the Undetectable Firearms Act. Doesn't get much more ambiguous than that. That's not even a clearly defined, let alone an actual firearm as of yet. But yet it's illegal. But yet it's illegal.
Well, I have a little something to throw on top of that. What's the difference between translucent and transparent, and then the word you just used? And where do those two words fall in line with that? Do they mean invisible, or do they just mean transparent? Meaning, I can see the outline.
They don't mean either. They don't mean either. They just mean undetectable. So whether that means it's a metal detector or it's an X-ray, or depending on what the method is that they're using for the screening, not necessarily like it has an invisibility cloak on it, so to speak.
So you couldn't make a meat pistol, you mean? And then,
they did in a movie called Videodrome, but you're probably right, Bob.
Not to get bogged down in the weeds, but I believe the Undetectable Firearms Act, I mean, that's just what it's called. That's just the title. The technical part of it is that you can't make a firearm that doesn't have a chunk of metal in it, basically. Like
basically the X-ray or the metal detector. It's I think it's both, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay. But
then again, let's be honest, that's not even necessarily clearly defined there either, because they didn't even have a firearm at the time to be able to do that. You know what I mean? When they made the law, which is part of the problem. Because that truly makes it an ambiguous gun law, which is terrible. Like we're basically talking about all of these ambiguous gun laws, and they're stupid and they shouldn't be there. And the fact that they are so ridiculous is a testament how effed up our government has been from time to time since our inception.
That is true. I mean, when they're writing a law to ban a gun that doesn't exist yet, and I mean, just think about that.
Like, but at the time they were fearing, literally adults fearing the boogeyman, or the monster under the bed, the monster in the closet. but it drove them to actually create a law, which is even more dumbfounding. That adults would be afraid of
Let's be
something
real though, Daniel.
that-
Fear and paranoia have probably created more laws over the world's legal system than common sense has. I hate to say it. And I'm not even talking necessarily about just gun laws, and I'm talking across the world and everything like that. There's fear and paranoia and lack of common sense has probably had more laws created than common sense.
and thinking that we can predict the future and create a law to prevent the next potential, catastrophe.
Yep.
Catastrophes will come. We cannot predict them. We know this. Well, maybe some of us know this.
Well, I mean, they do work on it. Like they're getting to the point now they can pretty much predict when a volcano is going to blow, when there's going to. They're getting to the point where they can actually predict earthquakes fairly accurately. So,
I'm talking about human
but
behavior.
but yeah, they're
I'm
not
not
making
talking about
laws. They're not
the
making
physical
I
world
guess-
around us.
Yeah, I guess they do make laws about.
It's not illegal for a volcano to blow their top, Bob.
Yeah.
Just
Human
saying.
behavior is
Well,
extremely unpredictable.
Let's see them try and make a law about it, right?
Let's see him get some
That's why
retribution out of the volcano itself. That's what I'd like to see.
That's why psychology is not considered a hard science, because it's not absolutely predictable in the same way that traditional science is.
Well, when I think of ambiguous gun laws, you got to start with the Second Amendment. Then the next one was 170 something years later at the 1934 National Firearms Act, and all it does is try to restrict or register certain firearms. So in order to do that, it tries to define firearms, and it failed from the beginning. So now we have things like those, quote unquote firearms, which are not defined by the NFA. The shotguns that were never a shotgun and aren't a pistol and aren't a rifle. So the original thing that all Title II of our federal firearms laws is in itself ambiguous.
How about the term any other weapon or a destructive device? That's pretty ambiguous tags right there, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So, we've allowed them to have non-descriptive terms for a long time. And then when you get things like anything that falls under NFA or potentially under NFA is going to require scrutiny and individual, what would you call that? Like research and then a ruling. And they create a process for that. And they tell us that if you ask a specific question about a situation that involves the NFA and you get a response from the technology branch and they answer your specific question, they tell us that answer applies to us only. And then when a bunch of people ask a similar question because of law is vague, then they look at the number of questions that come in and they challenge the fact that they suggest that because there's so many questions coming in that they can then make up a new interpretation of something. And it seems like they don't already know that's going to be the consequence. They're setting that stuff up to fail so that then they can, if they didn't get what they want, they set it up to fail so that they can then justify the going back to whatever it is they wanted in the first place. At least that's the way it seems 2020 hindsight sometimes.
Well, that's definitely what it seems like they're doing. They do something and then, like you said, crime doesn't go down any faster than it already has been or something, and they go, well, that's because we need this too, or we still need more stuff.
Well, that's what they always try, right? Is when their stupid laws don't work, they just try pile more laws on, because that's their only go-to is, our law banning guns or certain types of guns didn't work, so we have to ban more guns.
Yeah.
Well, the goal of our show is to start conversations, not necessarily to end it. I don't know what we're going to be able to do to end this one, but have we touched on this one enough? Should we continue on?
Well, I think we've definitely vented.
Yeah.
I think it's one that we'll definitely come back to, though, too.
Yeah. Bob, I know you were waving it around like a kid with a new toy. Do we want to take just 2 minutes to see what Bob's new toy is that he's waving in front of the camera?
He's got his camera off right now.
Oh. Okay, well, I'm just trying to give him an opportunity if he...
Look at that face. What happened to that face?
So what you got there, Bob? I can see generically what it is, but specifically what is it?
Well, he's muted, so we're not going to hear much.
Okay.
Revolver. Single action revolver of some type.
Probably like a 357.
Yeah, that's my 357 Colt replica Piata Thunderer, with a bird's head grip.
You like that smooth grip on that, as opposed to the hard angle?
I love this thing, man. It's so nice to hold. And, nice caliber. That's my baby. This is one of my favorite guns. Probably even more so than my
Say it.
power.
Nice.
It is. I like it better than my high
you know,
power.
we need to. Wow.
I mean, but the high power is here too. So,
No doubt.
Yeah. Because gotta have this.
Do we have to worry about Bob's health now? Do we assume he's having a stroke?
No, because he had talked about the high power before. Just the fact that he says his favorite, or he likes the 357 better, is something that I think he's coming around. He might be becoming more American, actually, since that caliber was developed by an American as opposed to some stinky European.
Well, they do. A lot of people do say that the 9mm was developed off the 32 auto, really, which was one of Browning's calibers.
They tried stealing it from him. I know.
I think my power inverter is actually blowing up right now. It's making these weird noises.
Do you happen to have a fire extinguisher in there, Bob?
I do. It's one thing.
Good.
I always make
All
sure
right.
I have a fire extinguisher.
You have the camera in the right spot, so if that thing blows up and splits,
Yeah, it's right there behind me, right? So let's see. Can I point at it? Yeah, right there is my power inverter on the wall, and it's making the weirdest freaking noises.
All right, so we will take side bets. If the battery acid that squirts out of there will catch Bob's clothes on fire, or scald him first.
Well, I do remember that the pool of whatever chat that Bob dies in, but let's also be honest that the Daily Gun Show was not a chat at that time, so therefore I do not believe that the Daily Gun Show can win the pool.
I don't. Why in Canada do you blow on things when they're being weird and they're electric?
You bang on them with a hammer first. Last I remembered.
Slamming on it. I think it was blowing on it.
Well, you blow on it like Nintendo.
Why don't we move things along?
Yeah, I'm going to suggest we're going to address who this Bob character is. We literally have viewers that don't know who Bob is because he played hooky for so long. Yeah,
I know. I was kind of took a bit of a long hiatus. It was just between where I was and internet problems and stuff. So
life happens.
Back now.
So Bob is this Canadian guy that came down here. He snuck into the United States a while back and drove around. And we started the show, about basically a year ago, Bob and I, and then Z and Dano jumped in, I don't know how many months later, and then somehow we left the door open and Smeggy snuck in. But yeah, Bob was one of the original co-hosts of the show, and for about a month now, ever since SHOT Show, he's been under the radar. So I guess we've had some new viewers since then, and you're being introduced to Bob, the Canadian.
Welcome back, Bob.
Oh, and there he goes.
And there he goes. He'll be back.
Well, maybe his thing blew up.
Yeah,
yeah, that is actually possible.
Yeah, I think he lost his power, most likely.
So we're going to jump into the second segment of the show, which is our good idea, bad idea segment. And that originally Bob and I would tape one of our arms, one of our hands together, and then we would knife fight over the topics.
G-Webs,
Yeah.
could we invert number 2 with number 3? Okay.
Oh, because you're leaving? Well, we got the guys from Andalusia Armory jumping in later, so we'll just address that stuff twice. But sure, we can jump into the gun advocacy then. We'll start talking about New York here in a minute. But before we do, we'd like to take a break between the first and second segment of the show every day to feature one of the members over at Gun Channels. And today we're featuring Steven Johnson, who's been posting quite a bit regularly. He's been doing the ammo art posts, but that's been pretty cool. And he participates in the chats quite a bit too. So it's kind of the reason we build Gun Channels, for people that are creating content, people that like to enjoy actual created content, not engineered or paid for content.
And he's all over the front page all the time, right? Is that am I thinking of the right guy?
Yep, the blue
icon. Yep.
Yeah, he takes place in the text chats quite often.
Yeah, I think I've seen him a few times in the text. Yeah, for sure. And that's the great thing is that, you know, the gun channels are set up so you don't have to be somebody who wants to get online and just like get your face or your voice out there in the chats, but you can also just you know, you can start out slow in the text chats, and then when you get more comfortable with interacting with the people there, sure, and then sure, if you want, come on into the video chats or the voice chats.
Or never do, but like you're saying, yeah, I mean, people that are just interested in pictures and stuff, or the Instagram stuff, yeah, it's a big family.
Yep, that's and that's what I felt about this ever since it started. Is it really is. I mean, where you're sitting in the chats together, it's like a bunch of people sitting around the coffee table shooting the shit and arguing about stuff, or maybe making fun of each other, or, you know, talking serious subjects. It's whatever you want it to be, and yeah, it's really is a family feeling, or a group of friends kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, just like Thanksgiving, awkward silences all over the place.
That's right. And always that a couple of relatives that don't get along with each other.
Yeah, there have been the odd angry chats.
It looks like we did lose one viewer because Bob's back, but I guess that's a good thing too, right?
They just don't know what they're missing. Bob's good people, even if he is Canadian.
Say, I'm still having internet issues.
Yeah. Some things never change, Bob.
No shit. Like, there has to be a better way to have internet on the move. There's just got to be something better than this, because it's so frustrating. To half the time when I'm in these more than half the time when I'm in an RV park, the internet is so poor. I've got to, like I'm doing now, I've got to use my gigabits off my phone, right? And you know, you only get so much of that, and then they throttle it back, and then you're back to being, you know, caveman days and dial-up speeds. So yeah, it is frustrating as hell. There's got to be a way to get unlimited internet when you're on the move.
Yeah, they have unlimited from Verizon now. I guess it'll be a question if they're going to throttle it back, like you say. But these shows take us about a gig a show, so we're looking at 20 gigs a month. So somebody wants to do the math.
I'm gonna have to look into that. Like, AT&T gives me 5 gigs a month. So I mean, that's basically 5 shows where I've got decent speed, and then the rest of the time I'm kind of counting on, you know.
And then that's also not using your internet for the rest of the month for anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so then that's enough of Bob's internet troubles. Let's move into the gun advocacy segment of the show. We're talking about New York specifically this week.
Yep, and New York and New York City are the topics this week. I put together a kind of a summary state of the state report on both New York State as well as New York City. And I'm going to throw some links out there so you guys can kind of follow where I got this information. Got the Wikipedia gun law on New York State, as well as the New York SAFE Act. Let me go ahead and get that out there over on Gun Channels. Okay, both links should be there. So you guys can check out the details of what I'm kind of going over here in general. Let's see. This is dated from November 2014, so there are going to be some changes, updates, etc. First, I'm going to go over New York State, and then later New York City. This is not an all-inclusive list, and as I mentioned, it may be dated. New York State has a requirement for firearm owners' ID cards for handguns only. And again, there's a lot more information on this. I'm just going to go kind of bullet point by bullet point. The state has handgun restrictions, but not long gun restrictions. They register the owners for handguns, but not long guns. And again, this is the state, which is separate than the city. They issue carry permits for handguns. They have assault weapons bans, whether it's considered an assault weapon that's a handgun or an assault weapon that's a long gun, such as an AR pistol as an example. And then we move into the New York SAFE Act, which has numerous restrictions to it. Basically, it broadened the legal definition of assault weapon to include those semi-automatic rifles, semi-automatic pistols, and semi-automatic shotguns with one or more military-style features, such as a telescoping stock, bayonet mount, flash suppressor, grenade launcher, and others. Limits on magazine capacity for both handguns and long guns to 10 rounds. The 7-round limit was struck down by a federal judge on December 31st, 2013. The judge struck down on the provisions that only 7 rounds of ammunition could be loaded into a 10-round magazine, calling it an arbitrary restriction that violated the Second Amendment. Again, we're on the New York SAFE Act, also requires ammunition dealers to conduct background checks to purchase ammo. It amended the New York mental hygiene law to add a new reporting requirement for mental health professionals such as physicians, psychologists, registered nurses, and licensed clinical social workers. There's a requirement to report lost or stolen guns within 24 hours. Failure to do so is a misdemeanor for failure to report. They created their own version of a universal background check system. Requires those who live in a household with a member who has been convicted of a felony or domestic violence crime that has been involuntarily committed or is currently under an order of protection to safely store any guns using an appropriate locking device. We talked about ambiguous in another subject, including a trigger lock or gun safe. Next, it created tougher penalties for those who use illegal guns, as well as measures to help combat gang violence. And again, there's a lot of details under all of these. I'm just trying to give some of the highlights. All handgun permits are to be recertified every 5 years with the county sheriff or clerk. And last on the SAFE Act, it was permitted the holders of handgun permits to request that their application information be made exempt from disclosure under the state FOIA law as a result of the article that some of you may remember on a website that listed the names of all permit holders. Now back to New York City, non-SAFE Act items, but still applies to New York City, as well as there are some other large cities within New York that this also applies to, is let's see what I have to, that they do have castle doctrine. They do not have state preemption of local restrictions. So this is what allows New York City and a few other cities to basically run their own laws and regulations over firearms. They have a very mixed peaceable journey laws for those traveling from one state to another, especially over magazines. And New York State Police do not recognize Federal Firearm Owners Protection Act. And that's a big thing to know if you're traveling through, is that's what is supposed to protect us as we go from, let's say, my state of Illinois, and if I were to travel to Oklahoma and I were to get pulled over in Missouri and the laws were different, that's supposed to protect me, you know, as I'm traveling through. But they do not recognize that. Now, New York City specifically, not involving the SAFE Act, and this is not an inclusive list, is they need a permit to purchase and then register, as well as register the owners in addition to that. So you need a permit to get it, you register the gun, and then you yourself are also registered. So it's not just a gun registry, it's also an owner registry.
That's kind of the way it is here.
What we would, in our community here, what we would generically call black guns, as well as any NFA items, are all banned. There are no, as I mentioned, there are no peaceable journey laws for visitors from out of state within the city of New York. And that is my state of the state overview on New York.
Excellent job, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks. So if they're not recognizing the safe, the firearm owners, the travel one, then why would they recognize any other additional ones that tell all states to listen?
Is that a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the changing it to that national reciprocity one. Sounds like they're already. I didn't realize they were already ignoring it. I've heard horror stories. I thought the horror stories were like misunderstandings or like them just being bullheaded. I didn't realize.
Well, there's a possibility, I thought, with the national reciprocity that if they don't give reciprocity, that there's a fact that there may be federal funds withheld from the state if they do not comply. Now, I don't know whether that's written in this particular version of the law that they're trying to pass or not.
Yeah, I wonder if the safe passage one just didn't have any consequences then.
Like there was no teeth to it or something.
Yeah, or
I could read you another sentence or two here from the Peaceable Journey Law. It says, most notably magazines are exempt. Some law enforcement agencies, notably New York State Police, do not recognize the Federal Firearm Owners Protection Act and may detain or arrest non-residents transporting firearms through New York in accordance with FOPA, stands for individuals in such situations.
Firearms Owners Protection Act
would then have to use the Firearm Owners Protection Act as an affirmative defense to firearms-related charges in court in New York. Now,
so you're saying
again,
they don't even care. They're still arresting you. They're still taking you to the court, even though they know that that's the defense that you're going to use and potentially win with. They don't care, is what you're saying.
Absolutely correct.
Because the money technically generated by the court case and everything like that, will be paid by the taxpayers of the state and or city. It will then also potentially cost you as the defendant. It's going to cost you a grip of money that you're going to be paying for, and then it probably generates more revenue, if I have to guess.
As well as, I think, fear of even the hassle, the inconvenience, who wants to go to jail for a few days, is enough of a consequence that people will just avoid it altogether.
Oh, I think you're correct on that. If anything, the fear of the repercussions may be enough to inhibit people exercising their freedom.
Absolutely. And I think that's why the state police in particular do what they do. Of course, they're told what to do. I understand that.
Well, you know what, though? Actually, I'm glad that they define it that way, because they're not just saying if you were in New York City and some beat cop happens to see that you had the wrong rifle in the back of your car as you're driving through the city to go up north for hunting or something like that. They're saying that the state troopers, which are pretty much the patrollers of the highways and byways, right, for the entire state, and New York's not necessarily a small state, that even if you're outside of New York City, they're still going to jerk you, pretty much, is what it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Oh, nice. Who is that out there helping us out in the Gun Channels chat? Scout posted and I'm not sure if they're from New York or not. They might be. They posted a link for the New York Senate. It's the bill to repeal SAFE Act in upstate. So that's a good thing, I guess.
He's stealing my thunder, I think.
What do you mean?
Well, I was going to talk about the stuff that was coming in. 879. Yep, that was one of the ones.
Well, wait. He just brought up. You can definitely talk about it, man.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and he might know more details than that. But I did do some research today. and I added to the Every Second Matters page for New York as far as, acting legislation. And this one is, S879, limit the application of the SAFE Act to the counties of Kings, Queens, Richmond, New York, and Bronx. So I think that's basically just the city, right? I mean, that's...
The funny thing is, that's not even the whole city.
Yeah. So
That's
now, as much as it'd be better to just repeal the SAFE Act. I mean, that's one of those, I don't know, some of these half-step ones, they're good, but at the same time, it's like, I wish they'd go for the whole thing. But, it is what it is. I don't know. It's a step in the right direction, I guess. Basically, see, they don't have as good of a website, the New York State, but basically, it's in committee right now. Like, that's what step it is. I'm trying to see when it was introduced. Well, I guess it was introduced in the 2015 to 16, what do you call that? Session? Yeah, session. And then it got reintroduced in the 2017 to 18 session. So an act to amend the criminal procedure law, the family court, blah, 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 and the penal law, to limit the application of certain provisions of law relating to firearms to the counties of what I read before.
So it's not necessarily to all the counties that cannot be overridden by the state.
Right. No, it's more so just saying that the SAFE Act does not apply to the entire state. It only applies to these specific counties, which, like I said, I think is basically New York City.
I was going to say, we got Scout and Car Carrier both telling us, one says, yes, just the city, and then Car also says that is the 5 boroughs for the city. So,
well, there you go. See?
We got some New Yorkers or former New Yorkers out there helping us out. So that's good stuff.
Yep. Thank you.
I mean, we'll see what happens with this one. Like I said, I have the tracking link posted on Every Second Matters. Looks like it's, co-sponsored by, I don't know, a handful of people. I forgot to hit more. Let's see. I see a lot of R's. So probably as many R's as there are in the state, if I had to guess. But, I mean, it's a good handful of people, so that's good. They're all on board. Like I said, it's sitting in committee right now, so that's about that.
They have, also the way that, when I went through and kind of created the summary, I've noticed that they had a number of what I'll call layered effects or layered laws where even if, like on the assault weapon thing, that even if a city decided not to do it, the state had it covered. So as an example, New York City, not only do they have their own internal thing, they also have the state law as well, covering the exact same subject.
Right, and that could be from one thing is maybe like the city did it first and then the state did it and the city just didn't feel like getting rid of it, or the state does it first and the city is worried that the state level one might get repealed, so they go ahead and put their own in. So that, it would have to be repealed twice.
It would be like making extra sure that they can, it'd be that doubly difficult to try to get rid of it.
Right. And then there is another thing that's active right now in New York, and that is Senate Bill 470. And this one's a little scary, but requires semi-automatic pistols manufactured or delivered to any licensed dealer in this state to be capable of micro-stamping ammunition. I have the link to that bill as well over there at Every Second Matters. But I believe it said something like okay, that's in committee as well. So it's just basically got introduced and shoved into a committee. Where was that? Where did I see that?
Yeah, micro-stamping comes up in Illinois almost every year.
Oh yeah, requires all blah blah blahs on or after January 1st of 2019. So they're not even doing the whole New Jersey thing where it's like when it's available, it has to be implemented. They're setting a hard date of January 1st, 2019.
Yeah,
whether it exists or not, it has to have it.
Through law and regulation, they're trying to drive the technology, which is exactly what California does as an example in the automotive industry, as well as in the gun industry. You know, they try to create their own laws as far as pollution control devices on automobiles, and it has to be California compliant. New York is now trying to do the same thing that California has been doing for quite some time.
Yeah, but I mean, unfortunately, when you do stuff like that, if the thing doesn't exist, and if it's not likely to exist, which I think a lot of people are familiar with microstamping and how it's not a very, reliant technology. There was some studies on it. Some dude claims that he has the patent on it, or he figured out how to do it, and then people actually tried to put it to the test, and it didn't work very well, and all this stuff. So it's basically a failed technology. It's something that doesn't exist. Well, it would be like making traffic laws for hover cars about how hover cars have to go, 55 miles an hour when flying over top of school playgrounds or something. It doesn't exist.
Legislate technological advances. With the federal government, I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong, but the federal government is the exact same thing with cafe mileage standards on automobiles. Is they try to force the manufacturers that in the future your gas mileage is going to improve to such and such level, as if we already know the developmental cycle of the internal combustion engine and exactly where we'll be in 3, 5, 10, 15 years. We'll know exactly what the technology is now. We just don't have it yet, but we know what it is. No, nobody knows what it is until you get there. Unless you're psychic.
Well, I think another thing we could touch on as far as talking about New York, it's not always doom and gloom. There's quite a few manufacturers still based in New York, correct?
Oh yeah, I think it'd be really interesting.
I thought some had left, like Remington. I thought they left.
To hop in just to hear from some of their historical perspectives on when they were in New York and how things, kind of evolved historically.
I mean, Ithaca, I think, is still in New York. Remington left. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that may or may not still be in New York.
Let's see, we got Turnbull, what do you call it?
Wow, he's in New York because he's the one that does the wood for the AR furniture and stuff like that. Turnbull's like a custom gun guy.
Dan Wesson is in New York.
Is or was, because Dan Wesson is owned by CZ now, which is out of Kansas or Missouri or whatever. One of those two.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't know that. Wasn't Kimber in New York?
I believe so. That one, yeah, I do, because is it like Yonkers or something like that?
Something like that. And then Ithaca, I think, is the other big one. I think of.
Yeah, Ithaca shotguns, which are still fantastic. Let's see. He's got JR Carbine is in New York. Bushmaster was in New York. Let's see if they're mentioning it. So yeah, you're right that there are still some, bastions of freedom going on in New York, which is good. Well, can't give up on it. That's the whole other thing, when we talk about California and New York and stuff like that, it's like, it's a certain percentage of the population of the entire country live in those two states, and some people just want to throw in the towel or whatever. It's like, no, we cannot. We need to support the people if they're there trying to fight for the Second Amendment. If we can help them, we should help them. Now, that's my opinion, but I will pretty much stand by that. I do not feel that it's a lost cause and it's worth throwing in the towel and just saying forget it. No, I'm not saying marshal all your resources to go there or anything like that. I'm just saying that they cannot just be left behind. It's too important.
But like any battle, I think you have to pick strategic points and when to focus your resources on those more difficult points. And so I think it is prudent to certainly not give up, because that is part of the ongoing battle that'll never end. But to keep an eye for an opportunity to see when it is worth focusing time, talent, money, to possibly when there's might be a window of opportunity for change in New York or in California or some of the other states, New York, Hawaii. I meant New Jersey, Hawaii.
Much appreciated, Dano. Much appreciated.
You're the often forgotten state, except when it comes to time for vacation.
Well, and here's the thing with Hawaii. Hawaii does not have a large population, so whether it's purchasing power for consumerism, whether it is representatives in Congress, I mean, at least we get 2 senators. Let's just say those 2 senators aren't necessarily the most pro-2A senators that had ever lived or walked the face of the planet. So Hawaii, yes, it's great for vacation, but to be honest, nobody really cares about our opinion, except for when it falls in lockstep with, like, say, the last regime that was in there. But anyway, we were talking about New York. We're not here to cry. Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Yeah, but it will be interesting if those guys are able to jump in, because to be able to have them give a little history from somebody who's actually lived there.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yes,
Right.
Dad. I know that everyone has 2 senators. I'm just saying, at least that's the most equal that we can ever get, is the fact that we do get 2 senators. But anyway, moving on.
So I can see by the swell of viewers that they figured out when Dano does his when it's the best odds for a certain thing. So I guess we'll move on to a different certain thing.
It's not time for the windbreaker. See, I could smell it. I could smell the rain coming.
Come to the crowd yet?
That's right, boys and girls. It's time for the tactical pop quiz of the day. I know you're waiting for that. Nothing like that shot out of the barrel. And let's see. YouTube, make sure you get your cursor down the text box, get your fingers limbered up. And those of you over on Gun Channels, do the same. This was a question that was contributed by Dead Horse, so thank you, Dead Horse. And I will read the question twice. Our official, have you seen the answer?
Yep.
All right. The question is as follows. What is Eugene Stoner's middle name? What is Eugene Stoner's middle name?
And I'd like to comment that Mr. Pawnery had a hashtag before the actual question was asked, and it was hashtag Eugene brings the sex. That is technically an incorrect answer, Mr. Pawnery, but however, that is very funny.
Oh.
Very apropos. Night Strike is an incorrect answer.
Oh.
However, Angry American. Oh, wait, no, excuse me. Pawnery did get it.
Yeah, Pawnery. I was going to say Pawnery got it.
Yep.
For all the Colorado people, it was not Bud.
Yes.
Yes.
Boris is his middle name. So correct. Congratulations, Mr. Pawnery. You are today's Tactical Pop Quiz winner. And as you always know, head on over to dailygunshow.com/pop-quiz. Fill out the form. Put your first, second, and third choice. G-Webs does have a new banner up there. He put that up there yesterday, I believe. So congratulations.
That makes you the Tactical Pop Quiz hot shot for today. Good job, Mr. Pawnery.
What?
Thank you, Mr. Moneypenny.
Are you running low on gas?
I'm not here to amuse you, Dano.
I mean, and by gas, I mean energy.
No.
Yeah, that was really kind of low key for you.
Yep.
I mean,
was.
You have trademarked a certain style.
Hey,
And-
suck it up, Buttercup. You can't always get what you want.
There you go.
Hey, listen, new guy. Go back to your corner.
Listen, just because Bob's back and I'm easily replaced doesn't mean
Nobody puts Smeggy in a corner.
God, no, you don't want him in a corner. He'll turn backwards.
I don't even know what that means.
I'm afraid to ask.
Yeah, I don't want to know. Moving
I
along.
remember.
Moving along.
So now we're going to get into the
Anyway,
good idea, bad idea segment of the show.
all right.
Yes, please. Thank you. However, I'm not sure how this is a good idea versus a bad idea because it's two versus each other. So slightly confused at the concept here, but I'm sure we can work through it.
It's not the first time you've been confused either.
Aloha and welcome, fellas.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
So we'll put off that and talk about New York.
Hey, what's going
Yes.
on? You guys hear us?
Yep.
Yes,
Loud and
sir.
clear.
All right.
Got the video too. Right on. So we got the guys from Andalusia Armory joining us. We actually do the show at the exact same time here, so I'm guessing your show must have just been wrapping up.
Yeah.
Right on. So you can see they do their show from their gun shop, and we were talking to them last week, and we're letting them know we were talking about New York this week, and you'd had some experience up in New York. So thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, I have. And I even took a quick look at New York State's website they have set up for the SAFE Act. Oh, God, I wish I didn't look at it.
Yeah, we went through that pretty extensively just a little bit ago before you jumped in. There's a lot of bullshit there.
Yeah, did either one of you happen to take a look at the actual legislation?
I haven't recently, but I did at first, like back in the
Yeah,
day.
as far as the SAFE Act goes, I haven't seen the actual legislation. I've seen bits and pieces, and not recently, but I was there for the '94 assault weapons ban. So, and I did read that legislation fully. It was '94. It's been a while, but I imagine if the SAFE Act is written, basically the SAFE Act is a rehash of that with a few added
Well, they
things.
pretty much copied and pasted it and then
Yeah.
added in a few other details that look
Yeah.
like to me because that's
Exactly.
basically
Yeah,
what it was.
and I can tell you what, if the actual legislation is written similar and just as ambiguous, they can outlaw any semi-automatic rifle with a detachable mag. And the registration they got under the SAFE Act is probably going to work like California and New York City has, where, okay, yes, you can register them for free now, but 5 years from now, we're going to deem that gun unacceptable, period. And we got your name and address, and we're going to want to see the gun or proof that you got rid of it.
Yeah, they literally come knocking on the doors, right? In some states.
Yeah, they've done that in California, even to law enforcement officers who had registered their assault weapons, and then 5 or 6 years later, California decided to pull out ban on that particular gun, and they actually went and confiscated them. Same thing in New York City. They've done it, actually come to your door because you registered it, and confiscated long guns. And when you talk about New York, you really got to make a separation between New York State in New York City, and sometimes Buffalo and or Rochester and Syracuse.
Yeah.
Because all those cities have some city laws that also apply.
Yeah, it's like Chicago.
Yeah. But reading over that, yeah, what I saw quickly is pretty much, I don't know how New York State's going to work it. I know in the past with handguns, if you're not a resident, you can't have a handgun in New York State. You're not even supposed to be shooting someone else's. But they did have, there were two spots, one in the handgun laws that allowed it for, if you were coming to a sanctioned, now this is the big thing, sanctioned competition, you could bring a handgun into the state, but you couldn't carry it.
Yeah.
It had to be transported a certain way, and you could only use it at that sanctioned competition. I think they had the same exception for hunting. Now with the new SAFE Act and some of the things I saw there, I'm not sure about that. I love how New York State says you have to have a background check, but pretty much, I don't know if they're sheriffs are doing them, city, town cops, or state police, but if you go to a gun shop, they want to limit what I can charge to provide a service. I don't like that. You guys got any questions about New York State and any of their laws? Because I probably have pretty good insight onto those.
Well, think back to when you had your shop. What was the procedure? Was there additional burden besides the 4473 when people were buying from the state of New York?
Okay, yeah, the state of New York, if you want to deal in handguns, you have to have a separate state license on top of your federal license. And you have to keep a separate bound book for the state. Now, I decide, I'm the kind of person that I ain't gonna put up with a lot. So I decided it was one, didn't want to waste the money. I had 3 other gun shops in the area that sold handguns. So I let them sell handguns and stuff, and I sold other things.
So basically, having just an FFL with the government, with federal government, you'd have to have like a license to sell from the city.
You do long guns and repair long guns. I could work on a handgun as long as the owner of the handgun was there with his permit.
So he couldn't leave anything overnight for you to work on something?
Not if it was a handgun.
Wow, that's ridiculous. I mean, what?
Because I didn't have New York State's handgun license.
And that's
no, he's not saying you're. He's saying that law is ridiculous. That's what I think he's saying.
Oh yeah, I agree. A gun's a gun. I'm a federally licensed dealer and Smith, so yeah. But the reason I didn't do the New York State thing, yeah, I'm a squeaky little son of a bitch. I don't like to spend money where I don't want to. But I had heard some stories from other gun dealers. New York State would send their inspectors around often. They were nitpicky. Not only were they nitpicky, but they'd also try to tell you they have a right to look in your federal books, which they don't.
I'll say no. But okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the kind of guy that would tell them to hit the bricks or you're going to be at the wrong end of my shotgun here in about 2 seconds. So I didn't want that hassle. So that was probably the biggest thing was the handgun. The fact that you actually have to go and get your pistol permit, and that means buy it, go through the background check, wait for the county to get done and get it to you, which depending on which county you're in, can take 6, 9 months, even a year.
You forgot about bribing the officials that had to be bribed.
That's New York City.
In the first place.
That's New York City. Some of the counties, they would put restrictions on your carry permit. Actually physically type onto the printed permit restrictions, like for hunting only or for target shooting only, where the state law did not provide for restrictions.
So they were just making stuff up. Like
some of the judges were, yes. It's however the judge felt that was issuing the permit.
And so if you're, that's the county that you live in, or that's the county seat or of where that judge, that's that judge's circuit or whatever. What is your recourse? What do you do to fight that? Or do you not?
At one time, there was nothing you could do, even if you got turned down. because New York State was not a shall issue. It was a may issue.
Yeah.
Now that they are a shall issue, you can get your attorney. One, they have to give you a reason for turning you down. Two, if you live in one of those places where some judge tries to add something to the permit, you can get a lawyer and it will be taken off. They don't usually fight it too much when someone shows up with a lawyer and says, hey, this is illegal.
But still, the fact
But
you
for
have
those
to do
people who
that
don't know better, they still do it to them and get away with it.
So that's why Alexander Shannara has expanded to New York.
Yeah, but he's accidents. That's a different story.
Damages. That's
Yeah, maybe. I doubt it though.
Seems like it's
So it really depended on where you are in New York. Now I ran into an interesting thing when I got my permit. I had left New York for military service. And when I came back from New York, I moved into a new county. And they want 3 references from your county that you have known for 5 or more years.
That's physically impossible.
It was for me. It was. And lucky I moved into one of the rural counties. And I explained to the sheriff, not a deputy, and the pistol permit clerk, my situation. And they said, fine, can you provide references from the county where you grew up? I said, sure can. And they said, we'll accept those in your case. So, I mean, when you talk about New York, it can get really difficult depending on the county you're in. Some counties are really lax. They're shall issue now. So the sheriffs and the judges are like, you've got a right to keep and bear arms. Here's your permit.
So you don't need references anymore?
Say again?
You don't need references anymore?
I don't know about that. I imagine they still do ask for references. Oh, and they can't be relatives.
Yeah, that's just discrimination against people who don't have friends.
Yeah. Or God help you if you don't know that friend of yours is a socialist liberal.
I tell them if I ain't too, but
I mean, I literally, if you exclude family, like, there's one friend who lives in the same county as me, because I'm kind of right near the border. So anyone who lives like almost 10 minutes west of me, they're in a different county.
Yeah. Where I moved to, we were at a corner and it was 3 different counties. So yeah, that can be a problem too, because you might live in one county, work in the other county, and half the people that work with you live in the 3rd county.
that's crazy.
But if you're in New York City, you got all the federal laws, state laws, and then whatever the city throws in. If you're in Erie County, Niagara County, Orleans County, there's a few other counties, but they got the cities like Buffalo, Rochester, Niagara Falls, Syracuse. Those counties are, or used to be, the hardest counties to get your permits in, and they cost the most. I'm trying to think, when I got my permit in New York State, when it was a May issue state, I think by the time I got done with my passport photos, fingerprinting, all the other bull crap, it cost me close to $300. Just,
yeah.
That's before I even got a gun.
Yeah.
And then you got to go buy the gun, get a slip from the gun shop that says you bought the gun with the make, manufacturer, caliber, and serial number. Take it to the sheriff. They put the gun on your permit and give you a coupon to take back to the dealer, and then the dealer can transfer you the gun.
yeah.
That's great. And then that permit you probably have to renew every so often. That costs more money.
Well, up until the SAFE Act, no, you didn't. That permit was issued, and was good until revoked by a judge.
Yours says good until revoked by a judge.
My permit says good till revoked by a judge. Now, last time I checked, the New York State Legislature was not a judge. I just got a letter in the mail telling me I have to renew my New York State pistol permit. But I never got a letter from a judge revoking it.
Well, is that like double jeopardy then?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if I go to New York State with my pistol permit and the pistol, am I getting arrested? Or are they going to give me a chance to renew it? Or am I good to go?
One of the gentlemen in Gun Channels is saying that now you have to re-up every 5 years. And so maybe you're
that's what the new law is, but I'm just saying mine says good to revoked by a judge, and I have not got a judge's order yet saying it.
Yeah, you should almost be grandfathered in. Like, you can't just change the law and be like, oh, just kidding, those don't count anymore.
Yeah, that's my. And if I win the Florida lottery, I'll go to New York State and I'll parade up and down in front of the cop shop and tell them, hey, look what I got, and challenge the law. But until then, yeah.
Right. Well, and that's
it's almost like lawyers are having a lot to do with rewriting and changing the laws just to make more work for themselves.
Have you ever looked at the civilian backgrounds of most state
politicians,
and federal legislatures?
Yeah, you are correct there, sir.
Most of them true.
Some of them never actually practiced law a day in their life, but they sure as hell went to school with it and learned how to use all them fancy words.
Yeah. Well, that's like I'm trying to remember what state was that where they're trying to like fix their budget deficit, and the way the guy's proposing to do it is by raising the renewal fees. Like, as of right now,
it's going up to like $300 or something.
Yeah, it's like $100 initially and $60 to renew. They want to raise it to like $3 something the first time and $150 the next or something. I remember doing the math, and to buy a gun and then own that gun for 20 years, it would end up costing you, God, I forget what it was. It was like $2,000 almost, I think.
God, that's ridiculous.
If the new thing went in place, because it was every 5 years, you're paying another, $400 or something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, when are they going to get a real lawyer or judge that knows what shall not be infringed means?
Well, I'm just curious if they're allowed to do that for just your right to own a gun. I mean, they're not even talking carry permits. I mean, there can be a case to be made. A carry permit's a little different than, an owning permit. So yeah, maybe you should have to pay for it a little bit. I don't like it. We can have that argument or whatever. But just to own it, that is exercising your right completely. Yeah. And just to own it, you have to spend a bunch of money. Could you imagine if you asked people to pay a quarter to vote? In this day and age, like, you have to pay a quarter to vote. People would be going nuts.
Yeah.
Because you have to pay to do a right. And yet you got to pay $2,000 over the course of 20 years. Yeah, that seems fine. That's no infringement there.
Why don't they just triple their driver's license renewals?
Yeah.
Because that would be a whole lot more people and a more fair way to spread it over a larger population. Let's see. They won't do that because all those people vote, and enough of them are going to vote that I'm not going to have a job next time.
I think you just raise them by $5 every year for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, thank Cycle Champ. He said it's Connecticut, an 850% increase in fees in the last 6 years.
What I find sad is out of the 13 original colonies / states, those are where you find the worst violations of our Second Amendment and First Amendment and other.
Two exceptions, though, Vermont and New Hampshire. The only two exceptions. Maybe Maine.
Yeah, Maine's not half bad.
Yeah.
So 3 out of 13. That's not a majority on. Well, and I guess Virginia's okay.
You guys
But
have
Virginia's always had an open carry that I know of.
Yeah. Or for a long time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
our license-
the one
those were
exception-
fighting
the
words
one
there. I
thing
don't know
with
if you
open
guys
carry
heard.
that I don't is you only have to have a part of the gun showing.
like we get our permit. It's good for 10 years. It costs you, I think it's $40, and then you renew it, and I don't even think you pay for renewal. It's just like send in the paperwork to renew it. You don't even have to pay after that.
It
Is
don't
that your
say
carry
that.
permit, Bob?
Yeah, that's for firearms, for pistols. And
No, your carry permit, Bob.
Yeah. We don't get a carry permit, but guess what?
Okay.
If they would issue one, it would be free. If they would just issue one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they do issue, I guess, about 100 a year, but it's only to like rich people and people who are under threat.
Your Justin Bieber's.
Yeah. Your famous person who's coming in for a weekend.
Those kind of people. Yeah, like rich, powerful people can get one, and it doesn't cost them a penny.
Yeah. Now, see, in New York State, if I was caught with a loaded handgun, I could simply say I just purchased this. I'm an FFL dealer. I haven't had time to unload it and properly package and secure it. I'm probably still going to jail, but about $5,000 or $6,000 and a good lawyer, I'm never going to see a prosecution on it. But
Now I got a question for you, Chase. In New York, would that be a per bullet in the firearm? Like, is each bullet a charge? Like they were going to try and do. Then I know they struck down the 7-round.
yeah,
But each bullet over 7 was supposed to be like an additional pylon charge. Do you know if they still did
and
that?
They still may be doing that. The little bit I did keep up on the SAFE Act, I heard they did away with that. It's 10 rounds now, and I think just having a magazine capable of holding more than 10 rounds is just whether it's got rounds in it or not. And it's just a straight thing. I don't think they add extra charges and differentiate between 12, 15, and 20 rounders like they were trying to do.
Yeah, they figured that was just too ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you
They got to
can't
draw a line
have
somewhere.
15
Come
round,
on,
you
guys.
could
They're
only
reasonable
have 10
common
rounds in
sense.
it. Okay. All right.
Yeah, if it's a semi-automatic and has a detachable mag, it can only have 10 rounds.
All right.
And that mag has to go in through the pistol grip.
That's on a pistol.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked at some of the pistol laws. A forearm on any gun can be considered a forward grip because I saw no definition of what was an actual forward grip.
Oh, so no AK, no AR pistols, no none of that.
Oh no, none of that. If the magazine goes in any place other than through the pistol grip on a handgun, it's an assault weapon.
Yeah.
Well, so what about a Henry rifle or like one of those mare's legs or something?
Okay.
Well, that doesn't have a
That doesn't have a
That doesn't
magazine.
have yeah, they got 2 magazines, and it's because it's not a detachable magazine, it doesn't qualify. Plus, if it's a rim fire, it doesn't qualify.
Oh, so they even designated just a center fire as well. Wow. Okay. Well,
So that little Tech-9,
Oh, now see, the Tech 9 is because of the
but it's rim fire.
yeah, but yeah,
Remember the little 22
yeah,
one?
I know.
Good luck in court.
Yeah.
Like you can say, oh yeah, it's not gonna like that should be okay, but
no,
still take you
the
to court
Tech
to
9,
prove it.
the Tech 9, the magazine does not go into the grip.
Yeah.
Right, but he was talking
Yeah.
about a 22 version of that.
Yeah, no, I got you. I'm just saying.
Yeah, there's something if it's
The Tech-9 itself
yeah
was
is the the Tech
there's
9
there's a whole section in there that pretty much outlines when you read it, it's like, oh, they mean a Tech-9.
yeah
Because when you read over it, it basically gives you a description of the
characteristics.
Yeah, of a Tech 9, and that specifically is outlawed.
Well, all you had to do is go back to the 94 assault weapons ban.
Yeah.
Tech 9
Well,
is mentioned by name in that ban.
Well, remember I told you
Yeah.
that whole thing there was taken directly
Yep.
from the 94 ban.
Now, I will tell you this, as being a dealer in New York State, after the 94 ban, there were certain companies that would not ship me certain guns or magazines.
Yeah.
And Sportsman's Guide was one.
Yeah.
And it's because they
Well,
were
they
following
pretty much-
New York City law and applying it to the whole state.
Yeah.
The NRA got on their ass about that, and that changed real quick after
Oh, really?
that. Yeah.
Because I know that they still won't ship to some places because of laws in the state,
Yeah.
in different places.
Yeah,
in the
there are
states.
certain things
Because
that
it's so tedious,
Yeah.
those laws are. They're just like, no, we're not
Yeah.
going to deal with that whole state.
and when you look at it and it says New York under that item,
Yeah.
it says New York 10, 11, 12, or 13. You
Yeah.
got to look for the specifics. Some of it might be New York City or something, or
Yeah.
another county or something. But now there were some companies that said, screw the state or states. I was able to get Cobras with 32 round mags. Cobra was on the banned list, and the magazines were on the banned list.
Yeah.
I was able to get Romanian Wassers with 30 round mags.
Yeah.
And I could get my 30 round mags for ARs for people through certain companies. Now, I was a gun dealer in New York State. I did not have a state license to do handguns, so the state really couldn't come in my shop and do anything without a warrant. So I sold those things right on the shelf. And I had some state troopers who were customers and some sheriffs who were deputies who were customers. And they'd come in, they'd look at my shelf, they'd see 3 or 4 Cobras, they'd see 3 or 4 AKs and a few other guns and go, I can't believe you got that. How much? I want one.
Yeah.
and I go, you know what those are? They go, yeah, they're banned. I know that. I don't care. I still want one. So just because the state felt that way didn't mean all law enforcement shared the state's views. And I'm probably going to be getting a call in the next week from New York State investigators.
Well, that's okay. This is
Wanting to know
all
which
hearsay.
deputies and state troopers I sold to.
So the rimfire ban, though, like the thing about the rimfire, so a pistol that, like, what are those 22 Magnum pistols that hold, 30 rounds, would those be legal or no?
PMR 30, is that what you're talking about?
If you're talking about the Kel-Tec handgun,
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
that is legal because it's an exception under the rimfire law. And it's an exception under New York State hunting law, which exists. New York State's always had a magazine limit for hunting purposes. So if it's during a hunting season and you're in the woods with, my Remington 7400, and I have a 10 round mag in. New York State law for hunting said you're only allowed 6 rounds while hunting. And that doesn't mean you only put 6 rounds in the magazine. It means the magazine can't be the gun with the magazine can't be capable of holding more than 6 rounds.
Yeah, and that gun comes
Well,
with a 5-round
I was going to
mag, so
say
you can
the
have
factory
6 in it.
mag is a 5-rounder plus 1 in the chamber.
Yeah.
But aftermarket mags are 10 or 20 rounders,
Yeah.
which would make it illegal if I had that aftermarket mag with me. There's I hope some New York State guys are listening. If not, I hope they get this passed on. Switchblades, automatic opening knives, push button opening knives. There's a federal law.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure on the federal law, but it usually makes exceptions for amputees of a hand or an arm. New York State law on switchblades, Class B felony all day long, with one exception.
Oh,
that
yeah,
it's
the
legal.
fishing thing.
If you are actively fishing or going to or from fishing, New York State game laws allow you to carry a switchblade.
Because you might need it in case you catch.
Well, you never know how tough that fish is.
Well, you know, I'm telling you what, I'm fishing, man. My rod and reel is not going in the water.
Yeah.
I was going to say, sounds
I
like
only
it's
got
time
one
to
hand
put a
free.
fishing pole in the back of your truck and call it a day.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, because if you've got
And always make sure that you have a fishing license in your wallet as well, just in case.
Yeah.
Does New York have fishing licenses?
Yes, I always had fishing line, hooks, and sinkers in my truck, and my license was always in my wallet.
Always current. Yes, sir. Exactly. Yes, sir.
Yep. But the trouble is, you get stopped by even if the game warden stops you. Even most of the game wardens don't know that law. You are going to get put in jail till they can check the law and say, "Oh yes, you're right. Here, let."
Oh, yeah. That's like when you have something that's questionable, but it's clearly legal, but it's questionable just because of the fact that it kind of looks like something that's not.
Yeah, police err on the side of we're going to arrest your ass and let the lawyer take care of it. Yep.
That's what I say. I mean, I swear, lawyers are the biggest problem, right? Because they're, you know, they're the ones who are always necessary. We always have to hire a lawyer in order to get out of this stuff, right?
Yeah, something I saw probably a good 20 years ago or more. At that time, there was like one lawyer for every 10 or 15 people in the U.S.
Now there's 15 lawyers for every person in the U.S.
I'd like to know the figure now, and Sean's probably right. It is probably closer to the lawyers outnumber the citizens. They'd have to.
That's just the most bizarre fact is that there's so many lawyers, and you know, and they're the ones who make the laws that make us need lawyers. It just seems like, you know, this is weird.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. They are the problem as well as the cure.
Yep.
And for some reason, it's easier for them to create a problem than it is to create a cure.
Yeah.
And then you have lawyers who become federal judges. Now,
legislators.
no, forget screw the legislators. Federal judges. Federal law. Every federal court should have the same interpretation of the same federal law. And they don't.
No, they don't.
And that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
I mean, and I have not seen a gun law yet that has ever prevented a gun crime.
No.
I mean, if we treated cars like they treat guns, you'd have to have a breathalyzer before you could buy a car. You'd have to have a breathalyzer installed in your car before it would start. You could never have had a DWI, DWAI, or any kind of drug charge or alcohol charge.
Yeah.
And you'd have to have a reason to own the car in the first place.
And plain and simple, cars still kill more people a day than guns ever thought of.
Yeah.
They'll give a 2,000-pound, 800 horsepower car to a 15 or 16-year-old, but they won't give a pistol permit, or I shouldn't say this, some states will now. If you're 19 years old and been in the military for 2 years, you cannot legally buy a pistol from a gun shop any place in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah,
But you can have an M16 and die for the Constitution that's supposed to protect your rights to have that handgun. But a 16-year-old can drive around a 2,000-pound, 800 horsepower car all day long and wipe out people on the sidewalk and get his license again.
Yeah, too true.
But that situation is one of the reasons why we know that we've got a winnable position here. It's just a matter of changing the public perception back to that. And if we would have suggested that a rifle was a problem to somebody in probably the 40s or 50s or something, they'd probably chuckle. Same way we'd, because it's just such a common thing. But
well, it used to be commuters in the city on the weekends, on Fridays and stuff, would see guns and gun cases on the train going in and out of the city to commute, because on Fridays and Saturdays, those kids that left the farm back in the 40s to go work in the city would be taking their gun back out to the farm on the weekend on the train to go hunting.
Yeah.
It used to be, most of America used to be like Covington County, Alabama. 95% of the households had one or more guns in them, even in the cities. And there were not that many, and the guns were more dangerous. They didn't have transfer bars. They didn't have all the safeties.
Oh yeah, you drop it and it's going off.
And you had fewer gun accidents. I'm not going to say hunting accidents, because New York State can prove that wrong. Unfortunately, a lot of gun laws started in New York State. I think Philadelphia was the first city to ban carry, though. And that goes way back before or just after, before the Civil War or just after the Civil War. I can't remember.
I thought it was earlier than that.
It might have been.
Where they places used to have where you couldn't carry in town.
That goes into the Old West days,
Yeah.
but no.
Well, yeah, most of them were still territories back then,
But I think the first real state or van was someplace in Philadelphia, New Jersey, someplace along there, one of the cities. But a lot of your gun laws, unfortunately, I hate to say it, I was there, I fought against it the whole time, but most of them were in place before I was really old enough for the legislators to listen to me, come from New York City and New York State. New York State's handgun law right now is named the Sullivan Act.
Yeah.
What you got to understand about the Sullivan Act, federal judges should have struck it down right when it first came out, because it was racially motivated. At the time, the Irish Mafia controlled New York City and most New York State, but the Italian immigrants were starting to gain numbers. And the law was specifically proposed so they could keep guns out of the hands of this new Italian immigrant wave. Basically, when the Sullivan Act was enacted, a judge had to approve a pistol permit. And if your last name ended in a vowel,
yeah,
that's as far as it went. You didn't get the permit. Not only that, it's discriminatory financially, because it costs $200 to $300 just to go through the permit process.
Yeah.
So someone making minimum wage and having an apartment, bills, and being a single parent, I'm just saying, $300 is tough to scrape together.
Yep.
Do we have any other specific questions on New York?
Now people have been talking about, well, the fishing stuff a little bit. They're just kind of riffing on what we've been talking about, but no specific questions coming in. I think that the last point you mentioned was a good one. You know, New York State, the city, I mean, being such a large, number of people, when they're able to keep the environment, guns away from the general people with the political and the legal way, or legal restrictions, then, like you say, those are people that just don't even have guns in their lives. So how do they know what it's like? And they definitely know this, that don't live with the security that having lethal consequences for actions gives the rest of the country. You know, they don't live under that, criminals being afraid of victims.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing. One thing I saw that the SAFE Act did do, it imposed mandatory sentencing on criminals using guns. We'll see if that, I haven't lived in New York since the acts took place. I don't know how the prosecution is going on that. I don't think you'll see a lot of it. I think you'll see a lot of, just like on the federal level, you hardly ever hear of someone getting convicted of federal gun crimes when anybody with drugs and a gun is guilty of a federal gun crime.
Usually what they will do,
they'll plea bargain it out.
They'll use that as a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
To
and that's part of the problem. They're using, if they'd enforce the gun laws more strictly. The other thing about New York State is if you got New York City and two other cities, Buffalo and Syracuse, Rochester and Niagara Falls, they can carry the vote on New York State.
Yeah.
So you have, by geographical area, oh my goodness, less than 1/100th of the state controlling 99% of it. And I'm sorry, people in New York City don't know what it's like to walk out your front door at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work and have 4 coyotes standing there, or a 600-pound black bear.
Oh, true that. It's like
or
that
have
in my whole
rabid
country.
raccoons in your garage.
It's like that in my whole country, right? I mean, we have like 2 provinces control the whole damn country, and the rest of us.
Quebec and Ontario, you got to be Canadian.
You bet.
Yeah, that's Bob.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, Quebec talked about joining the U.S. for a couple times.
I know. I kept wishing they would.
Yeah, I
wanted
used
to
to
get
have
rid of
some
them.
hunters from Montreal that would come down to my area in New York. And for a while, they could buy guns in New York and take them back to Canada.
Yeah.
And then the laws changed a little. And the laws finally got to the point, Canadian and U.S. laws, I think it was mostly the Canadian laws, that they just quit coming down to hunt. Because they'd have to borrow guns down here. And legally, with our laws, they can't borrow a gun.
Yep. I had to go. You should have seen the hoops. Had to jump through to bring mine down.
Yeah, I have no idea what it's like now, but this is going back 10, 15 years.
Bob had, he came down last summer, I think it was. He had jumped through a bunch of hoops.
Yep. Now I know some of my Canadian friends. You know, I grew up in Western New York, by Canada. I mean, I went to Canada for lunch every day for a while when I worked in the city of Buffalo. And it took a whole 10 minutes. I know when they first passed your gun registration, the Mounties out in the territories said, first of all, yeah, these people need the guns. There's polar bears, wolves, grizzly bears, mountain lions, you know, wolverines, all this nasty stuff. Plus, if they call, they don't have 911, and if they do call us, it could take us sometimes a day or two to get there, depending on where they're at. They needed to put food on the table. Oh, and lastly, they just assume register their, they'd shoot us quicker than they'd register their guns. And we're out in the middle of no place, and it would be weeks before we were missed.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this. When they did finally get rid of that registry, after we got a conservative government in, boy, a lot of people were buying ammo. Because
yeah. Yeah, that New York State safe law has ammo restrictions now as far as purchasing and stuff. I have some friends in New York State that know I still have I'm still in the gun business, and they're like, when you come up, can you bring us some ammo? And I'm like, yeah, not gonna happen. I'm not getting, if I'm getting nailed for bootlegging, I better be getting a hell of a lot of money.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I was actually told by the ATF when I came down is like, you can't buy ammo down in the States, so you have to bring whatever you're going to use. So, I mean, I'm hitting the border with thousands of rounds, and they don't even blink, right? Because it's like, well,
yeah,
I for 4 months.
If you didn't shoot it all.
Yeah, that's just crazy. But yeah, it's you know, I was surprised. Like when I got to the border, it was not a big deal. They didn't make a big deal about it because as long as I had that paperwork, right?
Yeah.
That seemed to be more. They cared more about the paperwork than actually looking at what I was bringing. They didn't even look at what I was bringing. They just wanted to see the paperwork. So,
yep.
Yeah, I swear it's all driven by lawyers.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. One time I went to lunch in Canada, went over the Peace Bridge in Buffalo. Didn't even. It's something that would have never crossed my mind. I mean, going to Canada was like driving to the next county. I got stopped at customs because I had an alternator, an intake manifold, and part of a carburetor in my pickup truck bed. They were core parts that I was turning back in because I'd been working on my car, and they wanted me to pay duty on them. Yeah.
Yep.
Luckily, I crossed enough, and it happened to be an agent that recognized me. He goes, "Yeah, I know you're not going to sell those. Here, go eat your lunch."
Yep. Well, and it used to be like I remember when I was like in my 20s, going back and forth across the border to go to the bar, and like you just tell the border, "I'm going across to the bar." Okay.
Well, yeah, that was a nice
later.
thing. When
So just
New York State had gone to 21, and I missed. They went to 19 first. I missed that by 6 months. They went to 21, and I missed it by 6 months. So I used to go to Canada because it was 18. Yeah. Not to mention the Canadian ballet is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we have really cool ballet.
Yeah. GTR.
Yeah, definitely. People in the middle of the country don't understand why your 19th birthday is a birthday to celebrate. You got 16, 19, and 21.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I'm not saying in Canada, when they went to 18, we had so many Americans come across a border at 18, right? Because you could legally drink. It was like, yeah, we kind of went, okay, you can join the Army, you can drink, and you can vote at 18. There you go. All right. If you're old enough to go die.
That. I was in the military and couldn't even have a beer with my dad at the bowling alley before I got shipped to a war zone.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? That just don't seem right.
No, it's un-American.
Hey, you can die for your country, but you can't have a beer.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're going to have to wrap it up here. It's almost 8 o'clock, so
right on. Well, thanks.
You guys want to get home in time for hit or miss? I understand.
Thanks again for jumping in, though. Good insight.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I never knew the thing about the permit to sell a handgun. Like that was really interesting.
Well, the rimfire thing I found really interesting. So yeah. It's like Canada. You can have like a 110 round drum for a rim fire, but you can't have more than a 5 round drum for a center fire.
Yeah, go figure, right? More people are killed by 22 long rifle in the world than almost any other. Well, maybe except for 7.62 by 39.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., 22 is the top killer.
All right, guys. We'll see y'all later.
All right.
Aloha, guys.
So we got about 10 minutes for hit or miss starts.
Looks like he's got about 7, maybe, tops.
So I think we'll probably abbreviate the show a little bit. We'll call Andalusia Armory our gun shop today and jump into the movie of the day. So try to hit a movie every day that people might not have seen in a while. I'm sure everybody's seen this one, though. Or if you're young and you haven't seen yet. But again, I mentioned everybody's seen this one, or else you have been parents.
I will bend like a, or I float like a, what is it? I float like a leaf on the wind.
Yeah, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's the song. But we're talking about the movie Serenity. I don't know if that's the show or the movie, but we're talking about the movie part of the show. Was it the show Firefly and the movie Serenity?
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
So talking gun movie, usually this is definitely a gun movie. It's a space western, sort of like Star
Dude, they
Trek.
got guns on spaceships. They carry guns. They modify their guns. They got all kinds of cool stuff in this movie.
They
This
drag
one is
cows
Vera.
around. What?
I was going to say this one is Vera. It's his favorite gun.
Vera, yeah. I'll be in my bunk.
That's a Sega 12.
Jane, yes. Yeah, great movie. Loved it. It was one of those things where I got to tie up a little bit from the TV series that got cut short. Yes, correct. The guy from Castle, Nathan Fillion, also Malcolm Reynolds, Mal for short. This one really definitely lets River shine in this movie. Really, I mean, if anything, it tells you why she was in the series the whole time. Really, I mean, they did a pretty good job of tying stuff up, all the loose ends for the most part. Sad in parts, good in parts, action all over the place, and for most of it, actually.
Yeah, it makes me want to go watch it again.
Yep, me too. That's definitely a 2 thumbs up for me. I will always recommend this movie to people. Even if you didn't watch the show, you did not technically need to watch the TV show Firefly to appreciate Serenity, the movie, because it's a great movie. I think it's pretty well written and everything.
Yeah, and I mean, even like regardless of guns, I love the spaceship. You know, it's kind of an old beater spaceship, and you gotta love that.
You know, it gets 2 thumbs up for me, but I agree with you. Like, yeah, it could just stand on its own as a movie, but I think that you can appreciate it more if you have seen the TV show. So,
well, there's way more gold.
I would recommend watching both.
Yeah, I'd
Yep,
have to
me too.
agree with that, Smeggy. Much as I don't want to agree with you, I have to agree with that. And definitely, it's 2 big, hard thumbs up for this movie.
I think they did the movie in a good way where if you have seen the show, you watch the movie, it's not just the same thing, although it is kind of the same thing. And if you watch, like Z saying, just the movie, you're still going to get everything you got from the show pretty much.
Yeah, the show gives you a lot of detail. You know, so it's yeah. If you can watch both, if not, just watch the movie. If you can only watch a show, but you'll be disappointed because it ends early. It should have.
Yeah, and that's why they made the movie,
seasons.
right? There was so much like clamor for them to finish the storyline.
Well, it was like what 6-7 years later or after the fact or something. Like it was a while. I mean, it may have even been almost a decade after. It was a while.
There's a comment on YouTube. Anyone who hasn't seen both isn't my friend. I might agree with that.
Also, then conversely, a very easy way to become someone's friend is to have seen both.
Yeah.
And we're assuming Dano hasn't seen it, so I'll give it 2 thumbs up. Let's see. I don't think it's
You know,
worth.
Danos don't like movies from like past 1978. It seems like.
I don't think there's worth going into the good idea, bad idea. Let's leave that.
Let's save it for another week.
Yep.
Okay. So with that, we'll sort of end up the show a little bit earlier, or just wrap up the show with what's on gun channels today.
Let's let Smeggy handle that.
In 2 minutes is Hit or Miss Tuesday nights 9 o'clock. I'm actually not familiar with anything else that's still left to be on. Like I said, Andalusia Armory was on earlier today, right during this show.
Big Gunner will be on today.
Oh yeah, Big Gunner. Yep, you're right. He's after us. So yep, Big Gunner 81. He always has really cool guests. He gets a lot of like competitive people and people in the like in the industry, like accessories manufacturers and stuff. So he's doing a good job. And then tomorrow, early watch and lobbies and all the good stuff. And then the Daily Show again. I think that wraps up.
Pacific. We'll be back here with episode 263. We'll talk about CCW issues, using a blued or stainless gun for CCW, the book 1984, the book and the movie 1984, and then of course the weekly tactical quiz.
Sweet.
You can start studying for now. And for the quote of the day, unless Bob's got one. Bob's here. You got one, Bob?
No, I don't. I was busy all day trying to repair my trailer.
Well, then I will throw something back to Serenity because I did find the quote. It's by Hoban Washburn. I am a leaf on the wind. Watch how I soar.
Nice.
Yes. Thanks, everybody, for your participation. Like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to dailygunshow@gmail.com. If you do need to find us, we're on gun channels 5 days a week. We are also on YouTube. I believe occasionally we are on Facebook and Instagram as well. So we are out there. Aloha, guys. Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
Yep. See you everyone later. As we kill some time because we were told to.
Waiting for the start here. All right.
Well, I'll tell you, whoever that driver was who cut me off on the freeway on my way from Vegas, I won't say what I want to you, but that was very rude.
I actually got something real quick to wet your whistle. New bill in House looks to close the ghost gun loophole. More to be discussed on Hit or Miss.
Oh, gotta watch that.
Whoa. Earth-shattering.
The guys and gals of gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching gunwebsites.com.
It's 11:59 on Radio Free America.
Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. I don't care, I'm still free. You can't take the sky from me. Take me out, into the black. Tell them I ain't coming back. Burn the land and boil the sea. You can't take the sky from me.